All right, so today's class, we're going to talk about process essays, and we would have already done the introduction of what is a process essay. But I am just going to go through what is a process essay, just recapping what you would have got in your slide, and we're going to move into the steps into creating a process essay and do's and don'ts. So if you follow along on the screen, you'll be able to see what is a process essay and the process in creating a process essay. So the process essay is writing that explains how to do something or how something works by giving a step-by-step explanation. And all expository essays are just exposing you to new information. They're explaining new information. So the explanation may be about concrete process, how to skin a muskrat or how to plant begonias, or an abstract process like how to build self-esteem or how to overcome the death of a loved one. Anything that is telling you how to do something, where it is explaining instructions or step-by-step procedure, that is called a process essay. These essays are usually found in medical journals. If you want to talk about, how to take care of yourself with diabetes, or you may find them in the beauty industry, how to get rid of acne. All of these are process essays. Now, there are three keys to having an effective process essay, and that is you have to present the essential steps. You have to present the essential steps. You have to present your step-by-step process in what do I need, how many of the items I need, or exactly what are the things I need, and then how am I going to use those things or combine those things to create the outcome that I'm looking for. So it presents the essential steps and it explains these steps in detail. And then we have to make sure that those steps that are presented are in a logical order or the order in which they should follow, if you want to use that term. So when we're writing our essays and we're doing our planning process, this is essentially what you're going to brainstorm. You're going to brainstorm what it is I need, what are the steps, why those steps are important, and how those steps should be carried out in their specific order. And you will brainstorm this, you will ask questions, you will write down information, and you will gather all of this before you start writing your essay. So when it comes to the explaining of the steps, this is a key step in the writing process for a process essay. You must present the essential steps in enough detail and logical order that your readers could perform the steps by themselves or at least understand how something works. So you can't be vague in your explanation and you have to be very detailed. So one of the most important things that will guide your process essay is the structure that you use. And this structure, as we said, is a 5-paragraph structure where you have an introduction follow that will make up your body. And then you would have your conclusion. All right, so you have your introduction, which is going to tell your reader what they're going to talk about. You're going to explain the importance of it, and then we're going to go into getting what we need, etc. And in this process, you have to come up with a thesis statement. A thesis statement is a sentence that tells the reader the points that you're going to discuss in the body of the essay. And yes, expository essays do have a thesis statement. The thesis statement for the process essay usually includes the process that is analyzed, and they break it down very simply. So applying for a driver's license is both exciting and nerve-wracking. You will need, and then you list shortly. So how do we go about writing an effective process essay? Present your stages and your steps in chronological order, or the correct order that is needed. And if I follow this order from beginning to end, I will be successful. You have to divide the process into at least 3 major stages, and each stage will require a different paragraph. So the process must correspond to the paragraph that is supposed to elaborate on the steps. So like I said, what I need, how I'm going to combine these things, and the outcome. You have to create a paragraph on the materials. That will be one of the bodies. So often the materials necessary to perform a certain process is listed, but the paragraph would usually explain what is happening. So even though you're listing these things that are needed in the introductory paragraph, when it comes to the body paragraph, you will explain. Next, you have to follow up that paragraph with how to combine, and then you will finish with the expected results. For each sentence that you use time-specific transitional words after, at last, before, during, eventually, finally, and the like. What this does, it guides the reader on what step they should be at. So if you say before you do this, you know this step comes first, etc., etc. Now, when you're planning your process essay, sometimes your work will look like a recipe or a manual for assembling, or just a manual with number 1, number 2, number 3, step-by-step instructions. And they'll use words like mix the flour and the eggs, put the eggs in the batter, place the egg in a frying pan. All of these are called imperative sentences because they do not have a subject. However, you have to try to limit this sort of robotic structure when you are writing because your essay must flow. So a process paper should be more than a set of instructions. It should be smooth and not choppy. So anticipate some of the things that the reader may have a problem with and tell them what to do and what not to do. So for example, if you're mixing some eggs in a bowl, be sure to tell them that make sure the bowl is large enough so that when you whip the eggs, it will leave enough space for the eggs to expand. Things like that. However, with a regular step-by-step instruction that is in bullet form, you simply say mix eggs in a bowl. With the process essay, it is a bit more explanatory. It goes deeper. It will tell you what you're doing and then what to expect while you're doing it. And if there are any things that you need to be cautious of. So provide reasons why certain steps are performed in a particular manner. And if these steps seem pointless or they seem extreme, give the reader the justification why these steps are necessary to be performed as stated. Make sure you define unfamiliar terms or you explain unfamiliar material that may not be clear or common to the reader. So for example, if you're talking about making gel, you have to first tell the reader what is Buljol, because Buljol may not be something they've ever heard of. So the process essay is writing that explains how to do something or how something works by giving a step-by-step explanation. And as we said, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And the process must present the steps, the materials needed, give extra information that will guide the reader as they go along. Now, before we begin even our writing process of learning to plan how to write a process essay, I want to demonstrate to you what is a process essay. So, based on the topic, how to live a happy life. In this first sentence, people are always searching for things that make them happy. This first sentence is called the introductory sentence. Some people call it the grabber sentence because it grabs the reader's attention. These sentences are usually a fun fact. It is sometimes a quotation from a popular person or a citation from is current. So, for example, you can talk about a reporting that happened on the news. We try to keep these very short, but yet exciting enough so that the reader would follow through with reading the rest of the essay. Do not make this a question. I know a lot of students like to start with a question. For example, if the topic is how to live a happy life, they will simply say, do you want to live a happy life? Yes, there are types of essays that allow you to begin with a question. Expository essays are not the type of essays that begin with a question. Reason for this is if you ask a question and the individual is not excited by the question, they will simply say no and move on. So if you say, do you want to live a happy life? And the person says, I don't care, they'll move on. But if you start with people are always searching for things that make them happy, that broadens the audience's understanding, it broadens their thoughts rather than simply trying to appeal to a specific desire that the audience may not have. So this is why I say for your grabber or your introductory sentence, make it a fun fact. Like this one, people are always searching for things to make them happy. This is a fun fact. Or make it a quotation, or make it a current event, some sort of fact from a current event. And this is called your introductory sentence. So please write down number one, introductory sentence. Sentence number two. These sentences that follow, the sentence number two, number three, and sometimes number four, depending on your topic, is what we call background information, clarification, definition. Basically, this contextualizes the information you're going to present. And when I say contextualizes, I mean it puts the information into the context necessary for the audience to understand what is being said. So, for example, many people work very hard to improve their employment because they want to find a better job to make themselves happy. This is putting into context why someone may need to make their lives happy. Other people search for happiness by purchasing things they want. It is not bad to search for happiness, but many people do not understand that lasting happiness does not depend on having certain things. It does not depend on the circumstances of a person's life. It depends more on how life is lived and the people that are loved. Okay? So here we have definitions of what people think is happiness. So sometimes people think happiness is having a better job. Sometimes they think it is owning things. Sometimes they think that they shouldn't even look for happiness or they shouldn't have happiness. But all of these things does not determine happiness per se. right? It does not depend on where you were born or who you are. So all of these sentences, as you can see, they're clarifying what is happiness. And when I say clarifying, I mean they're telling you what are some of the misconceptions of happiness, just so that the reader can understand that happiness is not what most people think it is. Now the reader is going to move into the thesis statement. So there are things, so the statement here, there are things that people can do to live a happy life regardless of their situation. We call it a broad statement. So we don't know what things they're talking about, but this broad statement lets us know that people do things. What are these things? The thesis statement is going to define the ones that you are going to look at. So after we have our grabber sentence, that is our introductory sentence that's going to grab the reader's attention, we're going to follow up with definitions or clarifications on the topic, just so that the person understands what we're talking about. We put it into context for them. Sometimes this can be 2 sentences, sometimes it's 3 sentences or 4, depending on how complicated the sentences or the topic is. Then we have our broad statement. Our broad statement usually has a generalization. People usually, most people in Vincentian culture, people all over the world, doctors usually recommend. You understand? All of these broad statements let us know that I am now going to introduce to you what is this thing that I'm going to explain. After the broad statement, we now have our thesis statement. And our thesis statement is going to list what it is we're going to need and what it is we're going to do. So in order to live a happy life, people should build relationships, be grateful, and help others. So if this were a paragraph that is saying something like how to make cake, the first sentence is still going to introduce people are always looking for new recipes for cake. It's going to be the same. For example, people may look for wedding cakes, birthday cakes, gluten-free cakes because some people have allergies. Other people try not to use eggs in their cake because of allergies. However, whatever type of cake you're trying to make, you just need to have certain steps. The things that people use to make cake depend on their allergies and their flavors that they like. In order to make a fruit cake, we will need fruits, flour, and other pastry ingredients, as well as ovens and baking material. It will be the same. So this is why the sentences are important for you to learn. So if you get a checklist of the sentence number 1, introductory sentence. Sentences number 2 to 4, contextualization that defines and clarifies information. Sentence number 5, broad statement generalizing how common this thing is. And then lastly, a thesis statement with your items and process to be discussed. Okay? Little thumbs up so that I can know that you are following along would be really helpful. So we're going to move into what we would say is the body. So you notice they start the body with the transition words that usually are, suggestive of time. So the first thing that people should do to live a happy life is build relationships. Notice that we are developing our paragraphs in the same sequence that was mentioned before. And really and truly, we need to follow order when we're writing these essays because the order in which they come is very important. So the first thing that people should do to live a happy life is build relationships with others. That is called our topic sentence. Our topic sentence will always introduce our point, and that's the first sentence of the body. So sentence number one for the body, topic sentence. Secondly, we're going to start with our definition or contextualization or clarification, same way. What is building relationships? If you never know what is building relationships, well, here it is. Building relationships can include both making new friends and strengthening relationships that already exist with friends and family members. These relationships lead to greater happiness because, so this sentence now is actually going into our factual information. So this information would be our researched information that supports what we're trying to talk about, right? So we have, even though we're giving information about what we're doing, we still need to break down why steps are important. And we're not just going to say, do this, do that, and let the steps just speak for themselves. We have to explain why it is important. And this would usually be supported information. So these relationships lead to greater happiness because people who have strong connections with other people are less lonely in difficult times. They have people who they can talk to and people who offer comfort to them. Another reason that strong connections can increase happiness is that they create a network of people who can offer advice. Knowing that there are friends who can offer this advice to help solve a problem can make people feel happier. Strong relationships also lead to greater feelings of belonging and security, which then lead to greater happiness. And then these sentences would be the step-by-step process. So the first step would be building connections. Generally, that's the first step. But what is needed to build connections? New friends, old friends. Why is it important? Because strong connections increase happiness because you can talk to someone if you're going through something. They can offer advice and help solve problems, or they can offer support if you need it. You get a greater sense of belonging, you get a greater sense of security, and this gives you happiness. Then we have our censure statement. Our censure statement is where we're going to repeat what we just stated in this paragraph. So building relationships is an essential step to living a happy life. So just to go over that checklist of sentences, we have our topic sentence. Then we have our explanation of the steps and the reasons why it is important for these steps to be followed accordingly. And lastly, we repeat what the step that we were looking at in that paragraph is. If you were to look at the next sentence, the next paragraph in the body, you would find it follows the same pattern. And that's because all the paragraphs in the body follow this pattern. So they'll start off with our transition word, and then it will introduce the next step. So in addition to nurturing relationships, people who want to be happy should be grateful. If we look at our thesis statement, the second point is also be grateful. So people who are grateful open their eyes to see all the good things in their lives. They express gratitude to people who help them. So you have to express gratitude. Many people have noticed that by opening their eyes to see the good things they have and choosing to have gratitude, their perspective changes. They spend more time focusing on positive thoughts instead of focusing on things that are negative or difficult. Thoughts create perspective, so intentionally Thoughts create perspective, so intentionally creating positive thoughts would lead to a more positive perspective. Regardless of struggles they have, they choose to focus on the gifts that they can see. So, regardless of the struggle, you still have to be able to see positivity and be grateful. Gratitude can change people's perspective and help them be happier regardless of the situation. So this sentence repeats what they spoke about. Gratitude is important because it helps people be happier because it changes your outlook to life. This paragraph will also follow the same pattern. Topic sentence started with your transition word. Finally, serving others can make people happy. When we look at our thesis statement, the last point is to help others, to be of service. Serving others can make people happier. Serving others can include doing simple things like listening to a friend who is having a hard time or preparing a meal to share with someone who is sick. These simple acts not only improve another person's life, but they also bring happiness to the person whom they're serving. This happiness is a natural result of lifting a person's burden. So it's explaining why it is important. Helping others also helps in other areas of building happiness as it strengthens relationship with others and it helps people feel more gratitude. When people serve others, they can become good friends by showing how much they care and want to help. People feel more gratitude because when they see the problems other people face, they find that their life is actually blessed. So these are all examples of how we serve others and the importance of serving others. And lastly, our essential statement, serving others is an essential key to living a happy life. So you would realize that these three paragraphs follow the order of the sentences. So if people want to live a happy life, they should serve others, be grateful, and strengthen their relationship with each other. This paragraph is your conclusion. Your conclusion usually starts with your concluding sentence. Your concluding sentence mirrors your thesis statement because your concluding statement repeats your three major points, whereas your thesis statement introduces your three major points. So your concluding statement mirrors your thesis statement. And this is why we often say that essays are like sandwiches, where our introductory paragraph would be the bun, and then our thesis statement would be like the inside of the bun. Our body paragraphs would be like the ingredients. So we have some tomatoes, a burger, a slice of cheese. And then for your conclusion, you have the inside of the bun again, much like the thesis statement, followed by the general statement. Each of these things focuses on people and perspective rather than money and material possessions. So that's the broad statement that the things that you think you need, you don't need. And then it explains in brief detail the importance of the outcome. So, what is the outcome? People bring joy to other people in a way that possessions can never imitate. Perspective can make a lasting impact on a person's life in a way that a promotion simply can't. So, as you can see, the conclusion is sort of looking into your introduction. So, if you said that baking a cake requires eggs so that it can be fluffy and so on, you will mention this in your conclusion. Having the right amount of eggs will ensure that your cake is fluffy. Same way with abstract things, it is also going to tell you the importance of the process that you just read. Regardless of the circumstance of an individual life, that individual can choose to focus on happiness in a real, genuine way if he wants to. Finding lasting happiness is really a simple search. That search begins as soon as people start looking beyond temporary things and only bring temporary happiness. And this last sentence would be what we call our thoughtful close or our provocative close or our contemplative close. When we say contemplative close, we're just leaving the reader with something to think about. So the same way our introductory sentence gives the reader an intrigue about what they're going to read, Your contemplative clues or provocative clues or thoughtful clues will give the reader something to ponder on after they have read the information. Okay, so it asks us to analyze. We have already labeled the introductory paragraph, the body, and the conclusion. This thing that is called a hook, this is also what we call the introductory sentence. So the introductory sentence would definitely be this sentence. This is the hook. And it's really to hook the reader's attention. So that's why we call it the hook. What is the general topic of the essay? Well, we've already established that by one, the title, and by two, our introductory sentence. Things that people do to make them. Then it asks us to underline the thesis. The thesis would be the three major points in one sentence, which is, in order to live a happy life, people should be grateful and help others. Build relationships, be grateful and help others. Then it asks, does each topic sentence support the thesis? Well, looking at it, the first one was build relationships. That's there in the thesis. The next one was be grateful. That's also there in the thesis. And help others, which is our final paragraph that says to be of service. So yes. And lastly, it says, does the conclusion paragraph start by restating the thesis? And it surely does, because we have be grateful, strengthen relationships, and serve others. So basically, they have presented the points in reverse, and then they have followed up with the reasons for doing so, as well as our contemplative close. This is how you would write a process essay for an abstract, concept. And it's important for us to understand what is abstract versus what is tangible or logical. So an abstract topic would be a topic where you do not see or touch physically the results. So happiness is not something we can touch. It is not something that we can hold on to with our hands. It is something that we only feel or we perceive in our mind. And this is how you write the process essay for abstract topics. If you wish to write a process essay on, let's say, how to make cake, it is not going to be as complicated as this, simply for the fact that making cake is a tangible process. So everything that you talk about is going to be right there for you. I'll give you an example of that. Let me share it to you first on WhatsApp. And I want you to recognize that sometimes people sometimes people make essays and else. If you are given a topic that you, even though it's in an examination, still try to think carefully about the topic, still try to understand the steps that you would take and make them chronological. Not all the time you may find that you know the topic. So let's say, for example, this says, um, how to, mm, What would be something abstract? How you may not know how to make friends, but you may have an idea. What is more important is not the process that you're outlining, but rather how I perceive that process in a logical way. Okay? So you don't have to worry about always having to know all the information when it comes to writing the essay. All you have to do is focus on what is important. Step by step, make sure you have everything there. So I don't want, I'm gonna give you an example of how to make a cake in a process essay. Let me stop sharing and then questions that you have right now. Anyway, anywhere, anywhere. Okay. Okay, so how to make the best cake ever. How to make the best cake ever. Now, I don't particularly like this start, and this is one of the very um common stats that I told you about. If you could make your favorite cake, what would it be? Vanilla or chocolate? You see, if you're not a cake person, you're already not interested in this topic because you're not a cake person. However, you can say something like, making a cake is a fun and easy process. That's a better introductory than stating vanilla or chocolate. But again, they're going to start off with your hook or your introductory. Next, they're going to start with obviously your generalization, your contextualization, where they're going to explain. If you're unsure, I'll become my favorite cake. It is actually called the most amazing chocolate cake. It is incredibly easy to make, moist and fluffy, and the taste is out of this world. Now, as you can see, the language is very informal, but I don't want you to focus on the informal language. I want you to focus on the sentences. If you notice, the sentences are coming in the same structure as outline. Our hook, and then it's going to contextualize the information. Not only is it going to contextualize the information, but it's going to tell you what is expected in the outcome. So then the person used in this essay, I will explain to you, I particularly don't like that. I don't like any in this essay, in this essay. You will never find in this essay when you get to higher level of writing. To me, this is more like a grade 6 student writing. So don't say in this essay, I will explain. All you have to say is to make the most amazing chocolate cake, you will need, right? You will need to have on hand to make this cake. Sorry. In this essay, I will explain what you will need to have on hand to make this cake, how to combine the ingredients to make the cake, and finally, assembly and decoration. Three main things that we're going to look at is what you need. So this requires ingredients and utensils. How to combine, which is the process of combining those ingredients. And lastly, assembly, and decoration. So the final outcome. This will inspire you to give it a try one day, whether you feel you're a baker or not. So this sentence could have actually come in here, right? So if you wish to be inspired to give it a try one day, whether you feel you're a baker or not, I will explain what you need to have on hand to make this cake, how to combine the ingredients, and finally, how to assemble and decorate. That would have been fine. Don't get caught up in this person's expression. Like I said, this is just an example. It is not wrong, but it is not at the level of writing that we expect of a third form, fourth form, or a CSEC student. But it's easy, and the last one was a little challenging. So this is putting things very easily. So in this, we see our hook, which is a question that is used. Next, we have our contextualization. Why you want to learn to make a cake? Well, you're gonna get a moist and fluffy cake that is so delicious that it's out of this world. And I'm gonna teach you what you need to have, how you're going to combine it, and how you're going to assemble and decorate it. That's a thesis statement. Okay? Just let me know if you're seeing the connections are there. If you can see the connection. Very good. Now for the first step, notice you see these words that are time specific. For the first step, you will need to gather all the supplies needed to make this cake for it to come out successful. This is your topic sentence. I am introducing what you need. So then she goes on. Make sure that your oven is turned on and heating at 350 degrees. Notice she did not say, get an oven. She explains that beyond having just an oven, it needs to be heated. And beyond being heated, it needs to be heated to specifically 350 degrees. You will need 2 to 3 baking pans, depending on your preference for layers. So as she says, you will need 2 to 3 baking pans. So if you know you want a 1 layer cake, 1 pan. 2 layers, 2 pans. If you want 3 layers, 3 pans. Notice she did not say baking pans. She explained the number of baking pans you need based on the layers that you're going to make. Make sure that you have, so you see this, make sure depending on your preference. All of these are extra things that the person may not know, but it is being explained instead of just having those instructions that you may find on the back of a box of cake. So when you buy the box of cake in the cake mix in the supermarket, the instructions don't come like this. It doesn't come as detailed as this. Make sure that you have mixing bowls and spoons or an electric mixer if you have it. For the cake ingredients, so here she's talking about the ingredients now before she spoke about the utensils. Now she's talking about the ingredients, all things we need. There are 2 different types. The dry ingredients that include the flour, the sugar, the cocoa powder, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. And the wet ingredients, which would be the eggs, water, buttermilk, oil, and vanilla extract. Other than an apron, that should be everything that you need to have with you. Okay? That's the first paragraph of your body, and you would notice it follows the same structure, topic sentence, things that you need listed, but also explained. The second step, once again, we're starting with our transition words, is when you combine all the ingredients that you gathered. Did they say in this that she was going to talk about the ingredients? Right. So she said the things that you have to have on hand and how to combine the ingredients. So she's following along in the order that I should be following along if I want to make a cake. Dry ingredients should be mixed together first. Next, you add the wet ingredients. Mix the batter at a medium speed for a few minutes until the mixed batter is smooth and lump-free. After all ingredients are fully combined, you will divide it evenly among the cake pans for baking. So you just simply pour it into the different cake pans evenly. Place the pans in the oven and start the time for 30 to 35 minutes. You will know the cakes are done when you can insert a toothpick into the center of the cake and it comes out clean. Remove the cakes and allow them to cool off for 15 to 20 minutes. Notice how it is very specific in the time. Notice it is very specific in the order in which you're presenting the steps. And notice it is giving clear description of what is expected at each process. So if you stick a toothpick in the center of the cake and the toothpick comes out wet, we know the cake is not finished because she stated that. Now, the third and final step is assembly and decorations. And this is exactly what she said she was going to say after she told you how to come by. So this is our topic sentence. For stacking the layers together, it is best to have something that will help the layers adhere together. Fruit filling or frosting, whichever is your personal preference. After you cover the cake in the frosting, it is time to decorate. I love to cover the top with sliced strawberries. It helps to bring in some color and freshness to my chocolate covered dream cake. So she's really trying to give description of what you can do to enhance the outcome and what makes it really exciting for her when she's making the cake. Lastly is our conclusion. So in this essay, I covered 3 simple steps to create the most amazing chocolate cake. I have covered all the supplies and ingredients that are needed, how to combine and bake said ingredients, and different ideas to stack and decorate your beautiful new cake. This is mirroring the thesis statement that spoke about what you will need on hand, how to combine, and assembly and decoration. If you take on the challenge of making this wonderful cake, I know you will fall in love with it too. This dark, delectable dessert will become your favorite as well. So she's telling them, trust me, you need to try this so that the person can walk away with this cake in their mind saying, I have to try this most amazing chocolate cake recipe. As you can see, for the abstract essay, the order is listed in different things that I can do and why it's important for me to do those things. When it comes to something tangible, the order is specific to what you need, whether that is ingredients or materials, like if you're going to make a chair, you'll need glue, you'll need lumber, you will need a hammer, those things. So ingredients if you're making something to eat, or materials if you're making something that is not edible. Utensils if you're in the kitchen, or tools if you're making something that is not edible. Then your combination. I will call this your process, the step-by-step process, instructing you on what you need to do and why you need to do them that way. And lastly, assembly. So what should I see when I am finished? And how can I use this thing? How can I enhance it? How can I make it even better? And then your concluding paragraph. So these essays are called method essays, where it's teaching you a specific method on how to accomplish something, or a process on how to achieve something. They are both abstract, which is things you cannot physically touch or physically smell or physically taste or eat. And then there are those things that you can physically touch, physically smell, physically eat. All of these essays follow the same 5 paragraph structure with your introduction that starts with your hook or your grabber statement, or we just call it an introductory sentence, followed by your contextualization. She has put into context that this is the most amazing chocolate cake and it's so moist and fluffy and it's so exciting and easy to make. And then she follows up behind all of that clarification and contextualization with her thesis statement. What am I going to teach you? What you need, how to use them, how to combine them, and how it's going to be in the end. Then we have our body. Each paragraph for the body follows along in the order that it was listed in the thesis statement. And you are very specific. Do not make it robotic. Add butter, add eggs, mix gently on medium, place oven at 350, pour batter into pan. It's not like that. It's very, it's very inviting. It explains, it is very thorough. It is giving you a clear picture of the things you need to do, what you can expect, what you shouldn't do because it's bad, what you should do because it's better, etc. And after you finish writing these 3 paragraphs, both starting with all of them, well, not both, all 3 starting with your topic sentence and your steps in chronological order, and then your synthesis statement. We're going to move on to our conclusion, and our concluding paragraph begins with our statement, then followed up with a brief, and lastly, our contemplative or thought-provoking sentence, which leaves the readers excited to go ahead and ponder what they have just learned. And this is a structure for writing a method and process essay, whether for an abstract. Next class, we're going to actually start planning our essay. And the first step we're going to look at in the writing process is how to brainstorm and plan. Basically explain how am I going to move from having a topic, and the topic that I have chosen is how to make bulgur. So we're going to move from how to make bulgur to actually planning and outlining our points. And then we're going to go step by step, class after class, learning how to create each of these paragraphs. After that, we'll have another topic that will be abstract, which is how to make friends. I was thinking to do how to get good grades on an examination, but I don't know what would be your interest. You can have the option of choosing, or if you wish to present an abstract topic for yourself, that would be fine. But I really want to do how to make bulgur because I think it's one of the most popular dishes in Vincent, and everybody has a different idea of how they make their bulgur. So really interesting to see how you create your bulgur as an example and how I create my bulgur for an example. And we can compare and contrast how the both of us wrote our essays. But next class would simply be the planning and brainstorming process, which is the first step of the writing process whenever you're writing an essay. Are there any questions from today's class or anything that you don't understand?
No, miss.
Well, thank you for joining me today in this class, and I will have this recording ready for you. Um, if you wish, I can send you this example as well of how to make the best cake ever. And you can have these as your notes. I've already sent you the. You can go ahead and
Miss, you're breaking up.
brainstorming how to make brainstorming and different techniques that you can use. Okay?
Okay, Miss.